back to the top. I mean, I met you. I think maybe it was in Denver the first time when I
Yeah,
was playing with Asim, Hotel Garuda,
yeah.
and they were still a duo. Asim and
I
Chris were
think it
still a
was.
duo.
I think it was at Club Vinyl.
Vinyl,
We were
yep,
like all at the same hotel. That's when we met for the first time. I think it was like 2014 or
something like
15.
that.
Um, but I also think Chris Manila was still in school, and it was
Okay,
only a seam at that show.
that's correct.
Um,
Chris was not touring
yeah.
that.
Also, Caleb was there, Amtrak too, like playing at a different club, I think.
That rings a bell. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Was that early?
I
Like,
love Denver's literally my favorite, one of my favorite cities for shows.
yeah, Denver's got so much going on,
Slash in general.
and shout out to all our friends over there and Brennan Option Four, who's like really making it work and
Yeah.
trying some really creative solutions, which we can get into also. But so at that
Yeah. And
point,
Kyle Palmer too.
right, and
Right
Kyle,
there.
that's right, he was with us then. Um, so yeah, I guess that's like when did you start working with Hotel Gruda, and like where did Moving Castle start? Like I don't actually know if what the timeline was on all of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can give the
Or
abridged
your
version
version,
or the
yeah.
full
You can give
version.
the short version, whatever version. We got time.
Yeah. So, long story short, I was in college, so like 2012. And I was studying in London at Westminster University, and these kids, Carlos and Martin, who were in my business class, were like, "You need to really meet this kid, Sandro." And I'm like, "Cool, cool." And so like we ended up going out a bunch, and I stayed in touch with all them, and they were all Filipino,
Mm,
and they were like, we hit it off, became friends, would go to shows with one another, and like, just so you know, it's like 2012 London, like Rusko, Screamin' Banga, like
okay.
all that stuff was like ultimate, like so poppin',
Sick.
and just became really good friends with these guys, and we stayed in touch after college. And Sandro was blogging, and I was like, "Hey, what's up? Like, I'd love to be part of this. I share my favorite music on like Tumblr, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
no one shared it really other places." Um, and so he was like, "Yeah, you should blog with me." So I Manila Killa was blogging at the time too, here and there, and that's how I met Manila. And one thing kind of led to another, and I graduated college, and I started working with him. Like it's pretty much like that. And
Was he
yeah,
in
so
DC?
that timeline's 2013 is
Okay.
when I started working with Manila. So it's been 7 years now.
Okay, dope. And so at that time, you said he was still in school, had Hotel Garuda
Yeah, he
already
was
started.
a sophomore.
Okay.
No, I'll get to the timeline, but basically, I was a senior and Chris was a freshman,
Okay.
and then he was going to be a sophomore, and I just graduated college.
Got it. And was he touring?
No, so like he was literally just doing like mashups and flips. Like he was in like groups with like Cap Slap and Blau and Jai Wolf when he was like not Jai Wolf.
Right.
And like with this guy Suika and other people, and it was like kind of the sound, the blog boom and like the hype machine stuff, and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the SoundCloud quote unquote bubble era of all that sort.
Yeah.
But basically that summer he kind of approached me. He's like, "Hey, like I I maybe want to take a gap year." And we decided it would be best for him to not take a gap year. But that summer he kind of like introduced me to AO Beats because they had a 2-track EP together.
Yep.
That summer he did a remix of Flume, like a remix contest, and he
Yep.
won for Sleepless
Dope.
with Jezebel. And then when it's kind of like the stars begin to align. We're like,
A little
"Oh
bit.
wow, like I think I should do this. I really love music. I love just that atmosphere and the people I've been meeting. It's like, how can I make my life synonymous with this as a business?" And I went to school for, business and comm minor. So like I understood what PR was, I understood basic business principles,
Right.
but I never really went to school for music business. So I had no idea once I graduated like what, what a PRO was, what sound exchanges, like what master and publishing splits are, like a
Sure.
lot of things. And so, in the beginning, it was kind of like, what is going on? Like, seriously.
Okay. And so you
Um,
were really just having to figure it all out. Like, did you say to Chris, like, let's see, like, I'll work with, like, let me figure out some of the business side of things, or how did that?
yeah. So, I think at the time it was like they're in college and figuring stuff out on their own and like, focusing just getting a diploma.
Right.
So
Right.
like, at the time I was working for my family's audiology company in Philadelphia, so like in-ear monitors, earplugs and all that.
Yeah.
And so I was working part-time or I mean it was pretty much full-time, but like I would be going to like Philadelphia, or I was living in Philadelphia but going to like New York and DC and like festivals. And so like at the time I was still blogging, so I was like interviewing people.
Right.
Like I interviewed like Odessa and like a bunch of other people in 2013, 14,
Mhm.
and it's like funny kind of just be like, wow, I have had Manila Killa on a show with Odessa now, and like
Right. Right.
how things kind of turn. But we can get into that another time. But yeah, so that summer 2013, I meet Manila and AO Beats, and I also that summer met Jai Wolf, who became like a very close friend early as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until that fall of October, that's when Asim, who now is Hotel Garuda, he reached out to me and he was like, hey, very random. And he like added me on Facebook. He's like, I went to middle school in Singapore with Manila Killa
Right.
and I just reconnected with him. I live in LA. I go to Occidental College
Right.
and I'm trying to be a photographer. And
Oh.
he's like, I also DJ. And he's like, I DJ my frat parties and like blah, blah, blah. And I'm
Right.
like, cool. So basically, we started to have him like go to shows, like doing photography for like LED and
Oh,
like
sick.
card and like other
I
stuff.
didn't know that.
And like his photos were like at the time too were like really sick. And it was
Hmm.
like right when like Lido was, Trippy Turtle. And they were
Sure.
like, you can't say at the time 6 years ago who he was. And
Right.
like anyway, so basically that's all happening and like, they're in college, I just finished and whatnot. And so I'm basically it's New Year's. I'm like about to go to like Holy Ship, like my first one, and that's like right when like, Disclosure just put out Settle,
Right. Right.
and
Right.
like and What's So Not was still with Flume, and
Uh-huh.
like that was like the hottest thing ever, like Jaguar and stuff like
Sure.
that.
Sure.
And I go on Holy Ship and like I had a press pass. So I got to like, meet people, like, and it was better than being, quote unquote, like a fan only.
Sure.
So like I was able to like, meet people, network, whatnot. And basically it was just like, RIP shows right now in general, but like I just have to say Holy Ship is
Mm-hmm.
by far one of the most fun, best events ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just so freeing, like being with your favorite artist while like walking down the hallway and like you can be on a beach at times and then
Right.
like the deck and all that. But that's not the full point. So I finished my first time at Holy Ship and I get off and I'm at a hearing aid conference with my mom because I was doing the whole audiology thing with her. So I'm in Vegas and it's like our off day. So like basically what that would encompass is like during it you take classes to learn whatever different topics from marketing to whatever and get certifications and credits, give or take, and learning about the newest technology. So I'm in the off period and I get a phone call from Chris and Asim. They're like, hey, do you have a second? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Like I have like a few hours like break period between like these classes. They're like, we just did a really cool cover of Disclosure's White Noise. We took MNEK's vocals of like that was a cover of White Noise instead of a Luna George.
Right.
We messed with the instrumental and listen to it, let us know what you think. And I listened to it and I was like blown away. And I'm like, first of all, Asim, I didn't even know you made music.
Right, right.
And he's like, yeah, like I've been like Chris has been teaching me.
Right.
Once if Brett is a little light.
Oh, your lighting. They want your chiseled features to be illuminated.
I could put a light on. Is this better?
It is exactly the same.
It's the same.
It's exactly the same.
That's weird. Wait. Anyway, sorry, lighting.
It's
but
fix it in post.
Fix it in post. Yeah, you know. But yeah, so long story short with that, I hear it, I'm like, oh my god, this is awesome. And so at the time there was like this Facebook group with like a bunch of managers. I think it was like called Sergeant Pepper or something. Like someone posted in it like the other month. And it was just like a bunch of like bloggers and managers and stuff like that. And Nick Garino of This Song Is Sick was like, yo, this is super tight. Like, can I upload it to like This Song Is Sick SoundCloud?
Right.
So at the time, just so everyone knows, all 24 of you, that would be like the holy grail of something happening where like Spotify was not even a thing.
Right.
Apple Music was not a thing.
Right.
SoundCloud reposts was not a thing. All the YouTube channels were like small, or not even existent yet. And like if you got that, you were like, oh my god.
Right.
So he was like, hey, can I upload this? And I'm like, one moment, call Chris and Asim back, and I'm like, guys, we don't even have social media yet for this.
Right.
So we made social media, and we like basically made art, which was like their faces with like the disclosure like face thing over it.
Right.
And so we upload it, make Facebook, and it was at the time you had like download gates. And so like I kid you not, overnight, man, we had over 10,000 Facebook followers. Like we became like #1 on Hype Machine. The whole internet, like Reddit and other stuff, was like, who's Hotel Garuda?
Right.
Because it like they're not like, we didn't say who it was. And very shortly, like things just, you just didn't even expect it. Like stuff started happening.
So right.
And so Garuda kind of was going, and like we put like a Rhythm of the Night remix and a Lana Del Rey remix out, and like those also just kept going. And like Hype Machine at the time was like also like an A&R's dream, and like maybe it still is. I don't really
probably
check
less
as much,
yeah.
but like A&R's kept like hitting us up, and like I guess this is a really funny story about the Lana Del Rey remix and stuff in general. One day, I'm still living in Philadelphia. I get a phone call from a British person, and I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's like, hey man, it's Lana Del Rey's manager, it's Ben Mawson. And I'm like, sorry if this was like an Australian accident by accident.
I'm not
sorry to
police.
anyone I say. And I'm like, and I hung up, and I'm just like, I then Googled like who Lana Del Rey's manager is, and it was like Ben Mawson. I'm like, oh my god.
Did you hang up on him in the middle? Oh, that's funny.
And I pick it up again. He calls again. He's like, dude, I'm Lana. He wasn't like, I'm Lana Del Rey's manager, but like, he did say that. And I'm like, what's up? Like, how are you? How did you get my number? Blah, blah, blah.
Right. And
he's like, I don't know. It's kind of funny. He's like, I have my ways or whatever. He's like, okay, like, we really love Hotel Garuda. We love their Summertime Sadness remix. Would you want to do an official remix for Ultraviolence? And we're like, and I'm like trying to play it cool, like, yeah, I guess.
Right.
So, timeline wise, I may be missing some stuff, but I'm just playing off the Garuda thing. But like, you just knew something was happening.
Sure.
And we got like a really early interest too from like AM Only at the time, like Paradigm AM Only, from Matt Adler and Zach Bluestone,
This
We
is a
do a
booking
lot of
agency
amazing
that
acts.
for those that are like,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
booking
a big,
agency.
big booking
Yeah,
agency, right?
yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, we still have the same agents from 6 years ago.
Oh, that's interesting. You guys haven't
Yeah,
changed agents at all the whole time.
no, they've been the homies since day one.
That's cool. I'm gonna guess that that's pretty uncommon, as far as I know, in
No, that's
industry.
very uncommon, I
Yeah,
think. I think that's just as uncommon as a manager being with an artist for the whole time too.
sure. So at what? So I guess putting it like back in that time frame, it
Oh
sounds like
yeah,
no, it's not.
timeline wise.
Yeah, no, it sounds like well, we don't have to check off every year. I'm really curious more about like your mindset and how it evolved.
Yeah.
What all of a sudden you were doing now? It sounds like you were already doing, at least in addition to your other stuff, two projects, because you were working with Chris and then you were working with Chris and Asim. Sound
Yeah.
like you were working with AO Beats. And what was your what were you moving towards? I mean, clearly there was stuff coming your way, and so you were like trying to figure out what to say yes and no to. But what was sort of your goal at that time to like help them accomplish?
So, I mean, I think at the time it was like learning on the go and it was like knowing very realistic um goals, like just like understanding like people are just starting out and not having expectations. And I think the biggest downfall, I wouldn't say downfall, but like it's like managing expectations. So like at the time everything was like the coolest thing and very exciting, and we weren't thinking like, oh, we're going to be the biggest artists ever. We're like, we're right in the now. Like, what can we do right now? And it was like we were just focused of what we were really good at the time, and that was like bootleg remixes straight up.
Right,
And like we were
crushing them.
figuring out originals, but like now people can't really do that because people are really cracking down with the licensing stuff on
Right.
SoundCloud and other places. So I mean, basically as time was kind of progressing, um I love Kat. Hi Kat.
Cat Bine with the
um
hookup on the video. We're using her video hack for you right now, which is why you look frame what flawless on the frames. I don't know. We're getting frames drop with you today because
yeah.
we're using her hack.
So
Continue.
so at the time too, let's just say we were Ausla started, Fool's Gold started, Selection was out there, Dimmock was out there, Ed Banger was out there, uh like Team Supreme and like Selection and all these other places, and we were like I was talking to Manila and AOBeat specifically, and they were like, "Hey, you should meet our friends Hunt for the Breeze and RoboKid." And so this is like 2014, and I'm like, yeah, totally. Like I'm still living in Philadelphia, and like everyone was in the East Coast rather. Like RoboKid and AOBeats were going to school in Boston, and Manila was going to George Mason, and Hunt for the Breeze was going to I think William Mary. It doesn't matter, but that I'm ringing a bell with that.
Everyone's in school.
Um, yeah, and yeah. So they came to me and they're like, "Hey, we have this idea for like a collective, not really a record label." And I'm like, "Sick." I mean, I already work with Chris and Asim. Like, I'm down to help. Like, what do you want me to do? What are your goals? Who are you talking to? And so they told me, they're like, "Oh, we're talking to these guys in Europe." Their names were like World and Gilo and Kapakavi. And they were talking to like Cat Moop, who goes by Young Skirt right now. And they were talking to like this guy Bamf. And also, it wasn't the first one, but like we were talking to like Chet Porter and Kids Waste and Jai Wolf and a ton of other people that you guys are probably familiar with right now. And we were all just friends, just sharing, these compilations.
Right.
And we were like, we dropped this long sleeve t-shirt for fun. It was at a Brownies and Lemonade show. So It was December 2014 actually, and the shirt was with Boogie Made.
Mm-hmm.
And
That was a fire shirt. I remember
Brownies
it.
flew us out. It was at the Lash, and it's crazy because a lot of our East Coast friends were randomly in town, like Ahmad Royal, who he just put out a song today, guys. You should check it out. Our friend Blaze Rayleigh, and then like randomly too, like my friend Ryan Farber was in LA, and like it was just like one of those, the stars were aligning, and it was just like an ultimate homie fest. Everyone ended up buying or was given these long sleeves,
Right.
and honestly, that show is probably one of my favorite shows of all time, like personally, because it was just like the spark of what could be. We didn't know what it was, and it was the beginning of Brownies and Lemonade. Like they flew out everybody, and
Right.
like no one really was paid otherwise, and it was like at this 150 cap small venue, and
That was all
was,
moving
I think,
castle, like basically a moving castle lineup.
yeah, it
Ish.
was Moving Castle. It was like Robo Kid, Hunt for the Breeze,
Right.
Manila Killa, AO Beats, and like we had like Young Wall Street was in town, and
Yeah.
like I think we had a few other people, and then like everyone went back to back, and like
Right.
yeah, I mean it was like such a sick night.
I think that was probably around the time of the first Splash House that I played because I was hanging out with you guys, and
Yeah.
hitting up all the different moving castle sets.
2015 Splash Out.
That sounds right. Yeah, because I remember Chris and Young Wall
We
Street.
had like our own stage.
That's right.
At that the more cabana-y
That's right.
area. And that was like Jai Wolf played, Louis the Child played, and that was like the big summer of like Helix 2.0. It was
Right.
like I got the camera phone light show. It's like a staple to like every Manila Killa set because you put the phone up and
Right.
everyone with lights. So it's like
And that was before they started like doing like the bigger production on Splash House where like they were protecting,
Yeah.
protecting the gear. Because I remember that was my last year playing on Serato because the sun was hitting
Right.
it, and Chris and Young Wall Street were like moving. I was like yelling at them to help me like move
Oh my
speakers
God.
to like create shade because it was one like 112 or 114, and I could see my computer just dying before my eyes.
Struggling. I think it was 2015.
Yeah, exactly. 2015. But that was a great time because I went and caught like
Yeah.
you guys had so many artists playing out there too. Okay, so from there, I mean, it sounds like you had like early on makings of what was going to become like a really
Yeah.
strong community of producers and
So-
artists.
Exactly. So I think the biggest thing to understand where we came from or in general is like community was first. Like it
Right.
wasn't just individualism. It wasn't like someone being in their room and like, getting a hit,
Right.
like it was like everyone kind of supporting everyone and people like through the grapevine or just like talking what was happening. Also that year in 2015, that was another like crazy moment is South by Southwest.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a multiple moving castle showcases, one with Run the Trap, and we had like Nodis and Sweater Beats, and it was like AO Beats and Robo Kid, Young Skirt, and some people.
Mm-hmm.
And then the moment that kind of changed everything was like Nest HQ. We had an event, and it was like Jai Wolf, like a bunch of the other people I just mentioned, and then Porter Robinson was our secret guest, and Keith Ape, when like Ichima came out, he was another secret guest during Porter Robinson's set, but the fire marshals ended up coming and shut our party down, and then once some people left, it went back on, and then Keith Ape came back and
Oh,
Porter,
shit.
and they fucking performed Ichima, and it was like the most lit thing of my life.
Right. You couldn't go 10 feet
I
without
feel
hearing
like I
that
should
song.
play Ichima for everyone, like right
Why not? You need to get that like a drop in the chat, like some audio drops. I got to get some of that. Welcome to everyone joining us. We got Brett Blackman on call. We're remembering early days of Moving Castle, Manila Killa, Hotel Garuda. Just those first bars go so hard.
It's So good.
Squash it.
You're taking me back right now, like just drinking from the bottle. Oh.
You dirty mom.
Where was that BNL? Was that a BNL show?
No,
That was a Nest.
it was it was at Kingdom in South
Oh
by.
yeah, yeah, yeah. R.I.P. I love that spot.
Dude, that no, RIP that like that year too, there was like an HWW thing with like Sango and Kate Tronada. There was like a Secret Songs thing with like Ryan Hemsworth. There was an Owsla crazy thing, a Mad Decent thing. Like it was just like to get very nostalgic right now, like such like growth in the bubbling of everyone doing stuff where it was like the most exciting things where you're like just so teary-eyed and excited about like what's going on and not like thinking about New Music Friday
Right.
or whatever
A
for
different time.
DS. It was just like, I mean, obviously it's still cool, but like it's just that moment of like you knew things were happening kind of thing, you know?
So while all this stuff is happening, obviously there's a
Yeah.
lot of work that needs to get done to make sure it doesn't all fall.
Yeah.
You capitalize on all the momentum that you guys were building for those, early years. What would you say were like what were some of the challenges that you faced?
Um I think I think at the time some of the business stuff and understanding like distribution and promotion and understanding like, oh, it's not just putting stuff on SoundCloud or even distributing it, but it's understanding like there's 75 territories or more around the world, and like how do you get these up places? How do you build your social media? And at the time too, like I don't think there were certain rollouts that encompassed like, you know, everything of like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. They were kind of just like additional tools, but now there's such more like strategy involved that like really build things out.
Yeah.
And as you kind of are learning, you're like, oh, this is how to make all these different particular assets, and like these are music videos we want, and these are like our taste, and like this is how we want to be seen. So in the early days, I think it's a lot of like just learning, and I mean we're still just learning, but like we have a better understanding of how to go about things and what people want. But like I think at that time too, with like quote unquote future base and things like that, it was like understanding our place in a way in our society, but also at the time, looking back on it now, it's like we were, and I'm not trying to over talk it because it was, but it's like I think we were one of the people to like really carve that lane out from our own thing, where like obviously we were very inspired by Cashmere Cat and Flume, and like it really birthed like Lewis the Child and Wheat Thin and like Oshi and like the Manila Killers, the Jai Wolves and all that. And like um I mean it's just making stuff. Like we just were making a lot of stuff and seeing like what worked and what didn't work at the time. Cause I'm not gonna lie, there's definitely stuff we've hid on
Right.
SoundCloud or YouTube that like at the time we wanted, but now looking back we don't.
So as a manager at that time, would you say that you were helping like A&R a lot of the stuff, or you're hearing a lot of demos and going like, let's work on this one, or let's maybe not put this one out right now, or this is not that strong of an idea. And like, was that because I know that managers have different roles,
Yeah.
and I think on today's call, you being the first manager we've
Yeah.
had on this, I think it'd be cool to hear about the different kinds of roles you've had to play and other people do.
Yeah. So I mean, I play all the roles,
Mm-hmm.
like especially in the beginning, like we were lucky enough to have, a business manager and a lawyer that believed in us, that took 5% instead of, hundreds of dollars an hour because they believed with us in the beginning. And, I helped it's freaking me out because there's like a small delay, so I'm like trying to cover my face on the Twitch stream. But basically, I help micromanage. Like I will make sure like we're dealing with the paperwork for all these places and make sure everyone gets paid. And obviously, at the end of the day, the business manager does these things, but like I need to make sure they get done. I make sure, we get the demos or give the remix opportunities or get the top lines or, melody loops or whatever starter ideas in the artist's hands for their records. And I would say my role hasn't really changed much, but I think my taste and my understanding of each artist individually, I've grown to understand myself and my strengths better, and the artists have done the same, and we're on the same page of like what they want. So like for example, like Manila Killa and he's very open about it right now, working on his debut album. um we have a really good relationship on how these things work of like he brings me records and we go over a lot of ideas of like certain singers we may want like that may be interested in. So like we'll have a separate section of all these singers, and then we'll also have just ideas of people he may want to work with that could be other producers. And that's kind of, we have a good relationship with that. And AO Beats may be a little different where like he's a producer where like he'll give us a lot of um beats or songs where like we'll go over everything and being like, this man is a madman when it comes to production. Like we're sitting over hundreds of demos and loops and stuff, and
Right.
like we have to separate it from like an R&B folder to a rap folder to a
Right.
pop folder to like all these demos, and we'll just go over like how we want to pitch them to people.
Right.
um and it I would say now versus then that it was not that case, 4 years ago or whatever, 6 years ago. And that feels like a lifetime ago. Um, I think then there was also like, they're all going through school, like they're like literally just trying to finish school. And like AO Beats, went to get his master's at Goldsmiths. So like the
Dang.
general timeline too is, and that's the same school like James Blake went to, KDB, all the PC music people.
So you need a master's degree to make
in
PC
pop
music. Okay.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. So what's 5%? I don't know. But yeah, literally that. And sorry, I lost my train of thought. But
No, but different goals. I think you're talking
Yeah.
about, which is really interesting to hear about.
So yeah, like taking a step back, I think it was kind of like juggling the college thing and the music thing. And I think everything happened so quickly that like we started touring and doing festivals and making music. And then, over years, you kind of take a step back and you're like, oh, I really understand my taste and my identity, visually, from photographers, videographers, and artists in general, and what you want to talk about. Like, what do you want to represent in your music? Like your feelings, of course, and how you want to, appear, but it also being synonymous with your personality. And it's a really interesting concept that I don't think I think a lot of people, have a difficult time grasping. But like, to everyone here, it's like being a musician, and it's not for everyone who thinks like this, is it's an extension of who you are as a person. And like maybe you like certain people could be like more ominous than others. Like, I don't know, like let's just say like Zoo, like he is very like was no face type person. And then like slowly over time, honestly only recently, they're like, this is who Zoo is.
Yeah.
And like and it's interesting, like how much of your personality do you want to show to the public, or like, because you end up living your life and you're dealing with this as on your Instagram and Twitter as you would as your personal thing, because it's just you. Like,
Right.
it's crazy.
There's not much of a separation over the
It's a very
last.
blurred line of who you are.
Right.
Um, which, positive, negative, it's what you want to get out of it. Sorry if I like derailed this a little
No,
bit,
not at all. There's no the rail is wherever it turns to, wherever it meanders. I mean, in that context, it sounds a little bit like you play a little bit of a you've played a bit of a role of like almost like a guidance counselor, if not psychologist, at times.
I'm a parent.
Right.
I'm literally a parent. Like, I think
Right
what's
in the rail.
cool is like I really do know what the artists want, and like I think after being on the grind, riding the rail, as Kat is saying, like, yeah, dadager. It's like, you meet people that are like minded, and you're like, oh, I can hit up this person for Spotify or Apple or Twitch or a blog, or supporting our music, because for a lot of these relationships, they've been for 6 years, and
Yeah.
it's just cultivating relationships, and crazy concept of being a good person and
Right.
being understanding and having reciprocity between give and take in a lot of these relationships. And as I see Alistair, I've known him, your manager,
Shout
for
out
a
Ali,
very long.
my manager. True.
What a king. And he's definitely a go-to person that I talk to on the regular as a very close friend of mine. And it's like, I think in general, a lot of these people you learn from the artist side or the manager's side or whoever's just in it.
Mhm.
Like, this is a very unorthodox lifestyle, and I think you have to be kind of insane to want to do
Right.
the music industry, because there's a lot of highs and lows that come with it. But I think we can all agree the highs very beat the lows at times, because you have an impact on people from putting out the music and people listening to it and like making their day, and them sharing the music and being like, this made my day, or like, I met my significant other, or like, I was going through a rough time, and like, this song really helped me get through that. And like, even just with Dusk Lights that just ended, and I just saw Samantha, who's an avid follower of that, like, that was such a special 17 weeks that Manila did,
Right.
that him and Angel, his girlfriend, were really, worked super hard doing a set every week, and doing like the visual component, and like just developing this like, tight-knit, really cool family of bands that at least like 100 people a week would come out. And I'm like, that's sick. It was like a little 100-person listening party. And then I mentioned earlier where I'm like, last night we had like 14,000 people, because we got on the front page of Twitch, and then Porter Robinson like rated us from his channel, and I'm like,
Wow.
this is a pretty good way to have a final last hurrah show for right now. It was pretty sick. Yeah, Kat, it was pretty cool.
That's
And
huge.
he did a 4-hour set last night. It was so awesome. He played like you can only cry to so many like times Rufus is being played, or Odessa, which the answer is, it does not exist.
What? So, I mean, it's a really incredible story that from like the early days, it sounds like you guys were building something very organically. A bunch of friends really just kind of making cool stuff, and like that they were excited about, and growing that family that way and doing cool things. Now that you've got a few in the game, and now you're starting to expand your roster and work with people that maybe you didn't know in 2012, right? Including a friend of ours, who did the first one of these Phone of Friends 20 episodes ago. Shout out Josh. What would you say are some of the things, with your experience now, that when you're looking at, new artists, up and coming artists, that make you think, oh, like, I wonder if this person has management. Like, I wonder, let's drop them a DM.
Sure. So, I mean, I'll say AO Beats, Manila, and Garuda I've worked with for like at least Manila and AO I've worked with for 7 years, and Garuda 6. And as you may or may not know, everybody, like Manila was in Hotel Garuda with Asim for like 5 years, and 2 years ago they split, so Manila could focus on just Manila, and Asim could focus on just Garuda. And just briefly, I'll explain. And Asim, just put out his EP, The Tension, and he's singing on it. And it's interesting and it's kind of funny, but also I wish we planned this slightly differently. Where like Asim Hotel Garuda is doing an interview right now with IK Multimedia on YouTube and talking about his story and his EP process. But he's really developed into doing his own like singing, and like it's his own thing. But I guess what I'll say is I've worked with like 6 other artists over the years that ended up not really working out, and I don't need to say their names because there's no like negative connotations, but I can say like I've worked with 6 other artists over the last X years that I just don't work with. And you'll realize you either work or you don't, like from your personality and like what they want out of it versus what you want, and you have to be on the same page. And I think it's like any relationship. If there's any riff or pull and you're not being honest, and the artist really needs to be the most honest with the manager of expectations, and the manager needs to be honest with the artist of like, this is what I can do. I think because I've grown with Manila, AO, and Garuda since the beginning, we fully understand our expectations from one another. And it's possible from others that got lost in the shuffle. But that said, most recently, as you guys may or may not know if you're tuning in now, I started working with Gold Room as well as Slow Magic, and both of those guys are like legacy acts. Like they've been around. We've been fans of them forever. Like they've been around like almost 10 years,
Right.
and like they're very far in their career. Like they've put out a lot of bodies of work, and they've done a lot of touring. And for whatever reason, like their relationship with previous management did not work. And I, through grapevines and stuff, like they reached out to me, and like we've been friendly over the years, and it just naturally worked. And I've been working with Gold Room now for like I guess like April, and Slow Magic since March, like literally since the pandemic
Oh
kind
wow.
of
Okay, that's
started.
interesting. I didn't realize that those were
Don't
both newer.
forget the pandemic is the thing, guys.
Right, right, right. I mean, that's obviously one other thing. I think maybe you're more well equipped for than artists because managers have to deal with so many moving pieces and unexpected things
Right.
happening. How was your sort of transition in terms of your perspective, in terms of what this was going to mean for yourself, the team, the artists?
Pandemic.
Yeah, yeah. Like, what was the big shift that maybe you wish you would have, that if I could have told you this a year ago was going to happen, like what was that sort of moment you'd be like, oh, this is just what needs to happen now?
So, being completely candid as we are, and I'm glad we're such good friends because it's such a natural conversation.
It's chill,
is
yeah.
like, yeah, it's pretty chill. Um, we just have rolled with the punches. I think like some people may have freaked out and like, done stuff that may not have been in the best interest for themselves as an artist or the manager to their client. But like, for us, Hotel Garuda had a tour with RAC. You know how we made the best out of it? That tour is on pause, but to continue the narrative, Asim did a remix for Louis the Child in RAC. And Asim also happens to live with Robbie of Louis the Child. So it's like, that was awesome. And it's gotten a ton of love. And, in addition, RAC remixed Asim for Olivia that just came out today, and you guys can listen to it.
We played it.
Maybe drop a link later.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Send me
Oh,
the.
did we?
Maybe you can. No, I didn't play
Real
it today.
quick.
I played it when we had a seam on Phone a Friend, we played it before not debuted it, but we had the sneak peek on Phone a Friend before it dropped.
Gotta do a plug real quick.
Dude, you gotta let me run it because we're getting your mic like sound. We'll play.
Oh my bad. Oh, you're running it. Sorry.
Yeah,
I
because
thought wanted me to run these.
no, like your sound comes through the mic. Good. We'll run it on like washroom break, which will be coming up. Can you send it to me on like chat or text it to me and I'll play it.
Yeah.
It's all good. No, that's dope. So
but
you've really, capitalized.
But anyway, yeah, like basically it's like, okay, well, we still were already gonna put out his EP. And so we were like, okay, how do we want to roll this out? Sorry, I'm like, okay, this is where it is. And so basically, taking a step back, look, guys, from now where we're at now versus like years ago, like now I have like 5-year plans, guys. Like I'm literally thinking ahead to 2025 for like touring and projects. And like, I won't admit like to what it is, but it's like, we sat down like Asim and I for Garuda and his EP and like our label. And we're like, here, we have a plan until 2022, And so that just came naturally. And,
Right.
I will admit too, like, because Asim tweeted about it, like having a discount for future merch, but like we're getting together some really cool merch, like there may or may not be a physical item for the EP. Who is to say? But, like certain things that like we've been able to kind of like do. And let's be real, these guys, everyone in the industry, guys, girls, overall guys, they've been touring for 5-6 years. Some of these other people like, Carl Cox and all these other legacy acts, I can't even imagine for like Diplo and Steve Aoki and like all these other people like touring 200 to 300 days of the year. Do you think that's healthy? No. Like you're going insane. So like, this last 6 months so far has been like a very nice wake up call to like focus on ourselves and like understand about like mental health and like treating our bodies okay and realize like who is giving us energy versus taking away energy and like what do we want to get out of life more,
Right.
Going on hikes, reading more books, whatever. But for Manila too, like he had like shows set up with like San Holo at Bill Graham and like Brooklyn Mirage and Concord with Jai Wolf. And like, I don't want to say this one thing because I don't know if it was announced, so I'm not going to say it. But like one very big thing was also kind of pushed. And like all these festivals like that we did not announce got pushed. Maybe Samantha's right. I don't know. I forget if that I don't know. But anyway, basically, everything hypothetically could be moved to next year, and like if there is a thing for next year, but like, we're kind of just using this time to like work on ourselves and like work on music without the distraction of touring too. Cause I think you realize like how hard it is to like tour and make music and not like put like these X months together. So it's like sick, we're giving ourselves 1 year or more to like work on this project versus like some touring cycles are so harsh that it's like every year or like almost every
you're just rushing to meet deadlines all the time.
Yeah,
right.
Like
it's like
yeah, we're making our deadlines.
Yeah, or you can take a second to figure out, like you just said, talking about the bigger picture, whether that's 2 years or 5 years. So I mean the same thing. Like if you're dwelling on what could have happened or should have happened, I mean here's the thing: is that it's like a flat, it's flat for the industry. So a lot of people lost all of their shows, right? Like I lost an Asia tour, I lost my first Australia tour, which was to happen in June, and I was like, all right. But I sort of like brought my head around to that possibility when we saw the early warning signs in February, March, right? It was like Asia's already shutting down. US is like going to happen. I'm like, all right, well, US stuff. And then, kind of the earlier you get your head around it, you sort of figure out, okay, well, what do I want to write? And you can do all sorts of different things and kind of take care of yourself, as you mentioned. I sort of wanted to switch gears for a second.
Yeah. Totally.
So one question that I've heard, or it just seems to be like a topic, because here in LA, you've been out here for a second. It seems like a lot of DJs or artists have managers, whether that's like their best friend or something. I mean, that whatever it is, like there's that kind of situation. But when would you say is a time, for what up, DLG? There's a lot of up and coming producers. There's a lot of talent out there, and different kinds of answers coming in. And what would be your opinion on like when is a good time to be like, let's say you're at the beginning, and you've got a bunch of demos. You're like, when is the time to find a manager, or when is a good time to be like, okay, maybe now I need one?
Totally. So, I mean, I told you earlier, and I don't know if anyone on here follows me on Twitter, but on my like 30th birthday, I like tweeted out, hey, I'm going to help 30 people with like a one-on-one discussion for 30 minutes to talk about whatever, like your career and like how can I help? Just with like very basic advice, and that's like one of the biggest questions people ask.
Right.
And my response was honestly like, what do you want? Like, what do you want out of a manager? Like, what can you do versus what do you want? And a lot of people were like, certain DSP things, or like connections, or like, helping you get certain features or production or whatever. But, I see a lot of self-managed people, like, let's just say like Terror Jr. or Liz Y2K or Dorian Electra, or there's a lot of people that like you instead of management in particular, they've built out this amazing network of people and collaborators, where at the end of the day, all you need are, like, it's so cliche to say, but all you need are friends. Like, you need just like people like that are on the same wavelength, from like, singers or producers or photographers or artists, And so I'm like, okay, so I have like an example too of like, someone specific asked me this as well, and they showed me a project, like an EP and the art, and they told me the rollout. And I was like, and they were looking for management, and they didn't ask me to manage them, but they asked me exactly like, how do I find a manager? And I straight up was like, they're going to find you. Like, straight up, like, that is usually how it happens. And if they don't find you, I think it's like, befriending people, like properly befriending people, either like being introed, or like your friends on Instagram or Twitter, and like you happen to grow a relationship, and then they may help give you like certain advice. And I see some of these people that have done that, and they've the manager will come to you when it's ready, or you'll feel like that relationship is symbiotic, and they'll be like, hey, you know what, like the manager, like a manager, not the manager, will be like, I thought like maybe it could be cool for me to like trial run working with you, and see how this will go. And I think in general right now, the best thing you can do, everybody, whoever is, an artist or manager or whatnot, is there's a lot of noise, obviously, with the election, and I'm not going to say anything political, but what I will say is,
Vote.
Vote, yeah, please vote. Sign up to vote if you're American. And but is you have time because there's no touring to grow your catalog, to work on that project, to put yourself in a position to silently keep your head down and work on something that is amazing, and that is ready to show to the world where, I'm also asked too of like, how do you get on a record label? Like, how do you, submit your stuff? And generally speaking, the best thing you can do with a manager or label is like, this is my vision. This
Mm-hmm.
is my vision for 6 months to 2 years or longer. Do you, as a person, label manager, whatever, do you believe in me? Do you think you could believe in me? And this also goes with like, David Kim, who's been our publicist, and I
Right.
think he works with you too,
Yeah.
has been, a day one publicist since the beginning. Like I literally met him on this party called Bounce Boat in New York City. Um, and I just think going back to the word or phrase symbiotic relationship,
Mm-hmm.
like I think a relationship, at least for me, it may not be the same for everyone, is like my my artists are literally like my family. Like I would
Right.
do anything for them, and like it's making sure that they can see their vision be seen and their voices be heard, and me have the best intentions for them, and understanding like how I like it's like the like I'm the vessel to their ship, or whatever the phrase is, of like making sure like they get to their destination and
Right.
I put them in the best position. So
That's a
it's like
great analogy.
understanding for when you're starting out as an artist. Okay, here's another analogy to that is like you're an artist that may be solo. It's you're building your ship, okay? And you are the captain. And then it's basically picking your shipmates, and like your
Mm-hmm.
shipmates being like your photographer, your videographer, your publicist, your manager, your other people.
Yeah.
And it's like building the perfect team.
Right.
Yeah, like honestly, like that's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
And, obviously it's harder for some people than others, but like I think it's just being open minded to like relinquish some control over certain situations
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, I won't say which artist, but it's like, let's say we're talking about creative. And, the other day we looked at a lot of music videos that inspired us. And I picked like 30 or 40 music videos. And like we went over like, photographers or graphic designers. And like, working in the industry for like years, I have Alistair knows me because we hang out and literally update spreadsheets. Like I'll go to those spreadsheets and I'll be like, pick the best ones that I think would work based on the taste, or the the color schemes or the emotions or any of that, and I'll like organize it, and it's just going back to like, okay, let's say you don't have management. I'll say like, do you have friends that are graphic designers or photographers or videographers? And they're like, yeah. Like, talk to them. Literally talk to them, because you are just as good as the content like you're creating. And if you can create good, assets from like even teasers of music videos, like I'll say, and she has management, but I just want to say like my friend Rossi has done a freaking insane job with, these recent music, like these virtual streams, from like some brownies and lemonade thing to Sable Valley to like Electric Hawk, where like each of them were so different. And her manager, my friend Dalton, like they're really on the same page about like their goals and like how to kind of like where you're going next. And like, yeah, I mean, it's just like finding, it's literally so cliche, like-minded people that are within your circles that you're like, I just want to create with you and
Right.
like let's have fun. But like, yeah, this could be a career.
I think
Dude,
that
Euphoria's fire.
I gotta check that out. I think you nailed it on the head. The part that, because I definitely get that question a lot. It's sort of phrased in different ways. It's like, how did you? Because I've been with them for 3 or 4 years now. I think everyone's like, how did you link up with Kitsune? And it's like, it's always the
Yeah.
same. It's always the same thing. It's like the magic bullet theory. It's like I have it, and I understand it because, I used to think that was the same type of question that I was looking for the answer to, which is like, what's the magic bullet here? Oh, we got a bot in the chat. I need to make
I
a
think
mod.
there's a couple.
Is there a couple? Dang.
Yeah,
A,
Nash,
a few weeks ago, I had a follower bot in here, and it was like, I shit you not, 50 followers. Like, one would drop every 10 seconds, and my alert chime was so loud, and I couldn't control it with an OBS. I thought I had to cancel the stream, but we powered through.
What's funny is Danny Deal, she was streaming and something happened and her automatic thing was like, Diplo hates me, and her bot was going insane and it just kept going, like literally like 40 things, and it was so funny.
It's really fun.
Pat, were you on that stream? It was for Bloghouse night. It was hilarious.
So I hope someone clipped that. I mean, here's the thing: is like with Twitch, like it's fun because we're all figuring it out, and some people are really utilizing their skill set. To Allie, I'm gonna put you. You're gonna be the bouncer. I'm gonna give you a sash. Allie's gonna be the muscle. But we're all figuring it out, right? In different like senses, and like people are doing all sorts of crazy like visual layouts on Twitch. But yeah, I think great in that. Especially, it's always been this way. Like, I have a bunch of beats. And you're like, well, how come I'm not, I don't know, Flume? Like, all I need is one person or label or whatever. And it's like, it's way more beneficial, I think, to think of your music, even if you're not, fucking Oliver yet, right? If you're thinking about yourself as as a business, honestly, because that's what it is. You're recruiting people to like join your team.
Right.
They get paid out of your pocket as well. And it's like, okay, so then how are we going to grow this together? Which means whenever you have a business, you need like a business plan, whether that's a literal or more, in terms of like a vision, like where do you want to go? Or we're going to do a thing where we combine, I don't know, bluegrass with like justice production or whatever that is. It's a concept. It's like, I get it. We're like,
Interesting, because even joking with that, you look back at like Avicii, God rest his soul,
right.
like him doing crossover between country and electronic, and like I remember being at Ultra and everyone was like, boo.
Right.
Hello Black was on, and the people were like, what the hell? And like I even was like, what is happening? And then you're like, it became like one of the biggest songs ever, because you're like, he was a trailblazer of like that,
right.
Right.
Yeah, no, you got to take risks, and I think that that's also important for the people that are on your team, like it, and also amongst like producers as you're building your community. I think it's more than like pat my back, I'll pat yours. Like, great, when I send and provide feedback, not just on the stream, which is why I think it's a nice segue. Sometimes I feel like I come off a bit harsh on some of the demo sections, or it might seem that way. I don't think we are. I think we're pretty kind. But honestly, like with friends and homies, and it's like, with like a Gold Room demo or something or other, I'll send him, and it's like, I expect to get, like, don't worry about my feelings. Be like, bridge is too long, slash this verse, the shit is twice too long, like, because all we're trying to do is get better, right? And it doesn't really help anyone if you're trying to make the best record you can and you're just like, oh, nice job. It's like, no, that's like, maybe it's a perfect record, and maybe you're like, it's a perfect record to Chris or to Racine.
I mean, what's interesting is like, I'll be straight up, it's interesting when some people ride the train of like something getting popular and then like either switching their sound because of like it may help them temporarily, but it like may derail like them in the future. Or like I'll just say the best thing you can do is like somehow, if you're somehow able to do it and everyone can't do it, like you have a signature sound, you know? Like if you look at like Lido, and like he is a dumb genius with like having how he makes music and having like a signature, like literally a signature sound in it. Like you could not like you could listen to his music, not even tell who it is, and you would just know. The same thing for me. I feel like I listen to like Chris Manila Killa or Odessa or Jai Wolf or Justice or Matty Porter, like, and I could keep going on, but like you could, that's like the craziest thing if you're somehow able to like you even have like your own signature sound too, where like you can listen and you're like, oh, like that's a Patlock record, you know? And
Thanks.
it's like there's some of these people too that like I think that's like almost like an honor, you know, if like you end up like, you know, having a signature sound, or the way, like if you're a singer, like how you carry yourself, like cadence, whatever. Or like I'll even do it, you know, with AO beats, where like certain records you're like, oh, like this record's totally for this person. Feedback has not started Build 12 sober.
Yeah,
My
we're gonna do the
voice, I
feedback
hate my
at
voice.
the end of the chat. Your voice is your signature.
My voice is my signature. True. But yeah, I mean, and like whoever's like watching too right now, like look, I don't get discouraged like where you are right now, wherever that might
Definitely.
be, that you've not even started, that you've started and you don't know what to do next. Like I think here's a great example, like Bill Withers, legend, RIP to him as well. He, nothing even happened for him, like a hit or anything, till his 30s, you know? Straight up too. Diplo, Cascade, and Deadmau5, they did not see any uh success technically, like the 10-year overnight success thing, until they hit their 30s. Same with Tiesto. Like, so anyone who's kind of like in their, if you're a teenager even and you're watching this, or early 20s, like do not be hard on yourself. I just turned 30, you know, like I feel like I'm literally just in my prime as a manager. Like, I mean, I'm not an artist, but like I feel like I'm really understanding everything. Like I feel like I understand
Yeah.
my place in society and what I'm doing and like how I can, you know, do things. And it's like I want to do things on my own terms and
Hmm.
not do it how other people are doing. And like that's the thing that I want to just say to people here too, is like I think it's important to like, you know, I appreciate everyone watching this right now for sure. And I hope, you know, anything I've said with Pat, like you get any nugget of knowledge that helps. And like, I think watching these podcasts and listening to them and like just learning is like all you can do, is like learning from things and, you know, uh, trial and error, like just with music and art. And like one big thing too, I was telling people as well, is like, make mood boards, make vision boards, understand what your tastes are, like straight up, like there's people on Fiverr that do things, you know, like there, you can do anything, you know, like, and it's just understanding like how, what are the things that you like, and like how do you want that to be a representation of yourself. And sorry if I keep hitting the head on the nail with that one, but it's like that's so important, like so important.
No, 100. I couldn't have said any better. On that note,
Bro, my back
let's
hurts
take a
all the
quick.
time at 30.
Hey, Phoenix had been making. They were a band for like 15 years, something like that, before Listermania. That before that record, they made. I think that was like their third full length. So there's a lot. There's a lot of. We're gonna get into more of this. We're gonna get to some demos. Let's take a quick water break. Stretch our legs. I'm gonna play that
I'm gonna take a water and
RAC remix of Hotel Garuda, Olivia. We're going to play that real quick, and we'll be right back here with Brett Blackman sharing stories.
So Lydia, tell me where'd your heart go? Cause we ain't got no time to fool around anymore. So Lydia.
Hope you guys like that. Hope you guys like that. Test.
We're back. Oh, did it stop?
No, it's fine. I had this sound on for the Twitch, and so I heard myself back. I'm like, this is weird as hell.
I didn't realize that it was. I thought it was just gonna like keep playing on radio, but I have Spotify in the web browser. That was RAC, a friend of the chat, a friend of Phone a Friend, and remixing Olivia, an icon, a legend, a guy that's really, honestly, I mean, I think we can talk about this like in terms of really embracing the new direction. No, I think like there's different ways to go about it, and it's cool that he's crushing it.
I mean, I think he in the first place is an inspiration to us, like an idol, if one could say, like, of him doing remixes and really like, you know, growing from that.
Truth.
And like, I mean, he's like close with us, and like I think he's put out over 250 remixes or something over the last almost 10 years.
Right.
That's an insane number.
He
invented what a remix is. Obviously it's that, but like he is. I mean, RAC stands for Remix Artist Collective.
But beyond that, he's also evolved what, like, his... So, there's a caveat there. I think that, like, in these times, like, during, let's say, quarantine times without the touring regular shows, what a successful or what a good transition is in terms of engaging, doing shows with your fan base is something different for every artist, right? And he's crushing it.
Yeah.
He's been thinking about, so I like, here's the thing is, even to hear him talk about it, I think we did on our stream, which I was like, yo, you like out of the gate, you had multiple camera angles and this and that. And I was like, how did you level up so quickly? It felt like week after week he was like, you know, unlocking new shit. And he, to his credit, you know, he was like, well, I do have an interest in photography, so I had like a cup, you know, some nice whatever gear. I don't even know the stuff, but he's like, so I quickly put those to work. But even still, to in his community figure out where to take it, and it's a flexibility combined with his vision and music. But if you haven't checked them out, anyone should go watch them. I mean, he's hitting the front page now. But even if he wasn't, I mean, he would be if no one knew who he was, because they're great streams.
I mean, I there's two questions that were asked, and we can get to that after this. But just for RAC, like, I think he was one of the first people. Like, I'll just explain a few people. One being you, just like, you know, you're on your 21st Phone a Friend, which is sick. And like, you've done it with Garuda.
Thanks.
And, you know, Gold Room. And like, you know, I think, you know, using what is from your personality of like, I want to interview people. And like, you've been able to make this a really great thing. And RAC's done the same thing, where like him doing streams and understanding like, okay, right now a lot of people need to like pivot, and like if you're not, you may somehow fall off. And it's like, okay, right now it's great to build these communities, because who knows when touring's going to come back. So it's like, okay, sick, let's do a podcast, let's do, you know, Twitch, like let's do, you know, a Patreon. And it's like, if you're able to get all this passive income from subs to patrons on Patreon, and like make, you know, 1,000 to whatever amount of money, and that offsets your costs of whatever else you're doing, that's amazing. And it's just gonna like snowball. And like, Manila has done that with Dusk Lights, and Asim with lobby calls and like his streams, and like, you know, I think it's taking technology seriously. Like it's straight up. Like I think this stuff too was maybe not as much at the forefront before, but like I think right now it's like really leaning into it and being like, it's really enjoyable too. Like I think, running around before so much, like from going to shows and planning and stuff, like you just didn't have the time to like relax and like, do this. And now it's like cool. Like every Friday, people are ready for like, it's almost like Pavlov. Like people are like muscle memory, like, oh, 2 p.m. Like, or like Manila Kilis, 8 p.m. on Thursdays,
Right.
like, so it's like, but these communities, it's been so nice to interact, or like I think even personally I've interacted a lot indirectly, like at shows or
Right.
on Twitter or Instagram. And like I sometimes would even be creeped out when I'm at shows and people are like, oh my god, it's whatever manager, like Brett. And I'm like, what? Like, why do you know me? Go away. No, I'm sorry. But like, it's interesting.
You love it, Brett.
But I guess to answer, let's go from the the first thing. Do you guys have some tips on how you can make the next step from music as a hobby to really being able to live off of it, like getting a couple 100,000 streams on Spotify, but the streams so far,
A multi-question.
yeah.
There's like 4
It's
questions in
fine,
there.
Samantha, you're great. I love running into you, and on the internet. So here's the real thing. We have worked with a lot of artists. They have day jobs or they're doing something else where like, the music thing is just a grind, it's like I have a lot of friends that have a 9 to 5, and, the music thing starts after at night where like, you're figuring out your craft or you're taking classes or you're going to tutorials. But like, going back to like the beginning of the conversation, berry juice music, and I don't know what you saw or not, is like you kind of just know, or you're gonna see like, okay, maybe I can do less hours at that other job.
Totally. Totally.
So I don't think you really know until it happens, like straight up. Like for example, and I don't think it's bad to say at all, is we just put out a song by this artist Pretty, Pritty, on Moving Castle with AO Beats that produced it, and there's a music video. It got like hyper pop and New Music Friday and like all this awesome stuff.
Dope.
And one could say like that's like the peak, everything you want like ever in the one thing. Like the YouTube video has like 100,000 streams too. But they still need a day job because that is not really paying their bills right now. Right. But like maybe that song could end up getting him either a deal with us or a development deal with another label, or like a feature that puts money in his pocket, and then
or a sync,
like snowball, or a sync, and things kind of like snowball, and you're like, oh shit, like let's go. Like I just stacked up like 2 racks or more, and like I can maybe quit my job or do like less. But like, to be honest, guys, like all my artists did the music thing for like 4 years, like while in school, and then even after, like lived at home, like no one like just jumped into it. Like there's a grind aspect. Like it doesn't just like happen. Like even for me, like I was living in Philadelphia for at least 3 years before I was like, I think I can move to LA. And like I was sleeping on friends' couches in LA. Like I didn't have an Airbnb. I literally lived on couches for 6 months. And then, I decided I think I can make this leap of faith.
Right.
And then I did.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a gradual process, especially in these changing times. Like I had a day job, and I was just burning the midnight oil every night. I would literally, and it took a toll on the relationship I was in at the time, it basically ended that relationship that I was in at the time, because I was like, I'm gonna go to work every day, then I'm gonna come home and like grind away, whatever. Doing this, I was starting to get, my first official remixes or whatever, and it was like, then that came that point where it was like, do I make that jump? And really tough decision. So I think regardless of where you are, it's gonna be like that. But I do want to address some of the other secondary questions in there, Barry, because I think Barry Juice, because I think there's some great points in there. Because before 100K on Spotify, like 3 years ago or 5 years ago, that wasn't like, we didn't know what that meant. So 100K, for example, to me, 100K streams on Spotify or a mil is like cool. That might mean that like your music is getting better, or maybe it's pretty good now, or maybe it's even great. But the different ways in which those numbers come together can be completely different things. Like if one random person, like a TikTok person with a big playlist, puts you on there and you get a bunch of those streams, maybe still no one knows who you are, and it doesn't actually mean much for your career at that point. Like plays and fans and building a base, and Brett, I think you would have a keen insight into this. They're very different things. I know people that consistently crush out like 7 figures on everything, but like no one who would pay to go see them play, for example.
That is a really big thing I've constantly talked about, of like passive listening versus growing a fan base. And I think it really also has to deal with who you are as a person. Like, are you interacting with the people that like talk, like that are interacting with you? Like, like, are you talking to them on Instagram or Twitch or any social media platform? And is it like you almost like you, the fan or friend, whatever, you become emotionally invested, and you're like, I want to see this person succeed because I enjoy their music, I enjoy what they stand for, and like their merch they put out. And like, let's say there's some people too that like donate portions of whatever to charity for like whatever the thing that it is. But it's like, I hate saying this, but I've said it so many times, of like, your vibe attracts your tribe or something, where you're like, the type of music or the things you stand for generally will bring in the type of people that you equate with, and like some people, this is even a discussion I've had with, our agents, where it's like, there's the passive listener on Spotify that follows you, that you somehow get them from a viral song or a Spotify pre-sale. You either get a fan to come in because they're a friend of a fan and they want their friend to go see them, or the venue did a promotion and they saw like, hey, we have this artist coming, and they either had a really good press photo or a good asset and they want to see it, or they're already a fan of the artist and they're like, oh, like I've been waiting to already see them, or they're somehow like a friend of that artist. Like, let's just say, for example, like a Louis the Child or Jai Wolf tweet out like, hey, I want you to see my buddy Manila Killa or Garuda or whatever, that means a lot. Like Chicago because they're from Chicago, or New York because New York. And most people who know those artists already are probably already fans of them. But if they're not and they see that, they're like, oh shit, I want to check them out. And they may go on YouTube or Spotify, or like, it's a cosign. But sorry, that kind of got away from that. But kind of getting back to not the passive listening, but the 100,000 stream thing is like, I mean, it's like I see people like somehow building momentum from like a TikTok trend of like it somehow gets used, or like it ends up on like a meme, or like you do get like an interview, or it gets picked up on like it gets added to an artist's Spotify playlist or a SoundCloud, like or a repost, or who knows, you don't know.
So you got to be ready. I'm going to interrupt you for just a second and be like, you got to be ready for that, because just because that happens, like there's different degrees of scale on like having maybe someone with a platform, let's say, give you a shout out or a little bit of shine. If you don't, like if you, let's say you've just started making beats, you live in a 10-person town where you live in the woods, and you just also happen to have, a cracked version of FL, and you made some fire stuff that 53 people heard last month, but then also like someone on Revolve used it for like their next like swimsuit campaign. There's like, like it can happen, right? If you're not ready to like use that and be elevate and elevate and build off of that. So, reach out and be like, hey, like, thank you so much for using my beat, even if it was one person, the person that created that video, whatever. Figure who that person was, like, do you want to hear, and figure out how to build off of that. It doesn't mean that like agents, managers are going to be banging down your door just because that went to 10 million views.
I have a couple examples that I've seen personally of like, let's say Louis the Child, it's like 2014 or 15, and they just put out It's Strange. Taylor frickin' Swift tweets it out, and then Lorde tweets out the lyrics. And Taylor Swift at that time too put up a playlist of It's Strange on her Apple Music, did like a thing. Overnight, they freaking blew up insane. That song blew up. Like, it was on Next Wave, Braden Belofsky's label. And like, that ended up getting Louis the Child signed to Ultra. It helped them get on Coachella.
Right.
It helped, but they stepped up, and then they
were ready.
Worked towards things. What, Kat? I always tell young writers there's no big break. Yeah, I mean, it just happens. I was like watching Nick Garino of This Song Is Sick, actually, funnily enough. He was interviewing someone yesterday on Instagram Live, and he was basically talking with them about like, when did you get your big break, or, certain things. Every time, I can safely say, you will never know. You're not going to know. Like, I think our biggest break for us, Hotel Garuda did a remix for Banks, Begging for Thread. Insane, blew up, like super insane. For Manila, he did a remix for Don Golden on his like 21st birthday, and it became an official remix on Downtown/Mad Decent. And like Kygo picked it up, and like that just blew up, and like I think both of those were like really big turning points for them that like you just don't know, but it puts you in a position to be like, oh shit, I'm in the big leagues. Can I step up to the game? Do I want this? Like, you need to make sure you want what you're going for, because not everyone wants to be a DJ or a singer. They're cool with being a writer or a producer and not having their face in it, And I think a lot of people don't know what they want. Like,
or maybe don't understand what that requires. Like, are you ready to be like doing, you're going to have to figure out what the records are, who you want to work with, vocal, on the vocal side, what you want your shows to be like, what you want, the art, you like everything, right? Where you were just doing bootleg remixes, right? I do want to like continue that point, because I think that although Berry Juice gave us like 5 questions, that there's some points in there, because you're talking about like these were really big points, notable landmark moments for Hotel Garuda and Manila Killa, for example. I think that like it's not one moment, but you start to pick up one thing. Like for me, it was first I just wanted to make something that was not shitty, and then something that was good. Like, I just wanted to play my own stuff in my sets and like have it be okay. And then I wanted like DJs, and then I was hoping that DJs that I liked, that I knew or maybe didn't like, looked up to, would be down with it and be like, oh, this is cool, or maybe play it. And like those are like types of wins that are meaningful. That aren't like, get an Apple sync the first time out. Like, you don't have to hit a home run. You're just trying to like go and look for signs that like you're improving, and that maybe like you're on the right path. And I think that's why, just for example, like these chats have been a really cool opportunity because, with Twitch, there's a lot of production streams. There's a lot of great artists doing demo feedback. Chris Lake is doing them. There's other what's that?
Chris Lake.
Oh, you got
like Bauer, Kenny, like
totally
Boys,
right. So you can drop in there, and it's a big moment if you get that win.
It's like a fly on the wall. Like imagine, okay, you're an aspiring artist, and they're accepting demos, and they play one of your demos, and you don't know who's watching one of these streams, and let's say there's some big A&R or another artist, and then they're like, yo, this is so good that Kenny Beats is I want to keep this, and you end up getting a cut on something, or an A&R hears it and they reach out to you, or there's so many countless times we've been reached out for either a remix or original or something that an A&R at a label or a manager or a publisher or someone hits us up about something, and you're you don't know when certain opportunities come to you, you know. I remember too, right after Asim of Garuda split with Manila and he just started focusing on his own thing, we immediately, once they separated, got hit up by Clean Bandits A&R, and they were like, hey, we love Garuda, we want you to do a remix for the Clean Bandit Demi Lovato song. And that was such a big song at the time, and they're so big, and you're like, absolutely. You just don't know what opportunities are coming your way. And I personally am a very big proponent of writing out your goals and going into your day with what you want to accomplish, and manifestation could be bullshit, who knows, but I think it's worth at least having stuff written out and knowing where you're kind of going, and having a plan. You can't not have a plan, guys. You need to have a plan.
So I think that's a really, I love where this whole Q&A is going right now. What up? Okay, Sammy, we're just talking about, there was a question about what kind of goals to set for yourself, and what does 100,000 plays on Spotify mean for transitioning to now you can go pro or walk away from your job or school or whatever. I'm not that I'm recommending that at all for anyone, without really knowing what's going on. But I think that these are all steps. So and you think that thing may come, you get that remix, it's, I don't know, it's the weekend is hey, and let's say you've got let's say it's 2012, you don't have the Banks thing yet, and the weekend's hey, here's an official remix, can you do this? Is gonna be my thing with Daft Punk. I don't know if you guys are down, maybe you want to do a remix. You'd be like, oh my god, this is our fucking shot, it's it. And you're like, yo, Chris, Asim, go crush this. And you're like, wow, this is the best remix I ever heard. And then you're banking on all of that, and you get an email back from the A&R, and they're like, cool, we like it. But maybe, just maybe, that doesn't do everything that you expect it to do. For many different reasons, it doesn't. Those breaks might not all go your way, and the important thing is to build off of each step and be for the next step, so that when it's ready to go, I can't tell you the number of times where maybe I got a remix opportunity. I was like, oh, that's what's up. Here we go. Because I'm going to crush this. I know that sometimes if I really focus on something, I can knock it out of the park. And I'm like, oh, yo, I fucking got this. But for whatever reason, it doesn't pan out.
Also going back to what you're saying about your moment or these steps, I think it's okay, it's taking a lot of very small gradual steps.
Yes.
That you're learning, and you're instead of going backwards, you're going very forwards, and you're kind of going right, left, whatever. And there's some bumps in the road where let's say for me specifically as an artist manager, picking up certain clients that ended up not working out, and I have to split my time for X amount of time with them. And it's for me, instead of looking at it as, damn, I wasted, 3 to 9 months of my time on it. No, it's, I learned this about myself and the people to work with, and the questions I need to ask going into it, what, again, your expectations, and having very checks and balances on like the relationship. Because here's the thing, everybody. If you're an artist, like maybe if you're the biggest artist in the world, but maybe not, like it's not you're an artist and you yell at your manager or other people to like do things for you. It is literally more so you're an artist, you're on the same wavelength as your manager, and the manager helps you micromanage everything and make sure your life is as least stressful as possible. Am I right with that?
Yeah, I think it's like keeping a running
You know,
tally. I mean, like of the priorities, like helping you like juggle. So, for example, with like my manager, Ali, you know, we'll talk about what are the different balls we have in the air.
nice gent.
He's a great guy, yeah, and it's nice that he approaches things with a different perspective than I do. We've been working together, I guess, like close to a year now. I don't know. Time is a flat circle at this point, but it's like.
I remember when he like told me that you guys were potentially working. I'm like, fuck yeah, that would be such a good pairing.
I mean, we met at the writers camp that you and he and Kat set up at Electric Forest.
Writers camp, which Kat actually was part of and helped, and sadly, none of those songs have ever come out.
Not for lack of effort on my part, I will say. I wrote with everyone.
No, I think everyone was so tired from Electric Forest.
Yeah.
But it was just like a great week of just hanging out either way.
I had to leave on the Wednesday or Tuesday to go to Denver, and then I came back and I was so pissed because like
We were just in Detroit so long. We miss what's it called? Cafe Carmen's Diner, guys. I miss it. 22 things of toast.
So the context here, we will go down like it's only, I guess it was 2 years because I had, was it Kat? There was someone
18 June.
Yeah. When was it? June 2018.
June 2018. That was like literally when Garuda like split, and that was the very heart-wrenching weekend for everybody.
Yeah, no, that was a fun. I mean, so basically, you guys had set up what I think there's something there, and writing camps have always appealed to me, even though I haven't really done that many in the official sense.
For the few we've done and the few that I also know about, I feel like the camaraderie that comes out of it, like really, you know, you take like these stories and what people are dealing with, like just out of thin air in a way, and like they're able to really like feel comfortable with the people that's around them. Like, I mean, I know you're not a writer, but like I would assume like when you have been in sessions or stuff, like you've been able to talk about stuff that you've been feeling.
Oh, I'm absolutely a writer.
Like,
I'm absolutely a writer. I'm not a lead writer, but I'm absolutely no. Like 90% of my records are like I'm in the room. That's like one of my prides. It's like I actually feel a lot. No. There's no offense taken, but like that's the whole point. Is like you drop me in there, and like I love it because we can get, especially when we go into a room to just write records. That's the way I'm wired. Yeah. I'm like, let's get this done. I feel like almost like a fucking like a commando or something getting just dropped in. I'm like, we got a couple of hours before we do the next session or next group of people, and I'm like, let's bang this out, and you know, hopefully you can make that work. But anyways, but before we go all the way down here, I think what we were talking about generally was that it's good to set these goals, and those goals can be shifting. Like, first off, it's like, can I make good music? Then it's like, maybe can I make good music that people I respect also like, which in these Twitch times you can establish pretty quick. Like I was, for example, with A-Track last week, I was really excited about that, not just because he's a legend, but because I knew that we were going to get like some demos from people and
crazy.
And like, so someone, this dude that's been sending me music for a while now, not like every week or anything, but you know, over the last year, I suppose, he had one of the demos, and I'd sent A-Track a few of them, and was like, you know, I know your time is short, pick a few. So it was his choice, like, you know, let's do these 4 or 5, whatever. And he's like, let's do this one. He's like, and then we listened to it, and he was like, yeah. He's like, I don't really have a lot of notes. It was dope. It's in the pocket, like, and then I was like, sick. I don't have any notes either, and like he didn't make a big deal about it, but like the producer didn't make a big deal of it, but then he like A-Track went in the chat and like commented and added his handle and was like, yo, like that was dope, thank you. And it's like that, those moments mean a lot, especially in the early days before you get your release. Even after you get your first release, you're like, all right, cool, I'm on the right path, just keep going, you know?
So excited, dude. Like even last night, Porter just rating like our Twitch, like that was like so fire. And like I can only imagine people playing, you know, some of these demos on stream, and freaking A-Track is like saying something about your song, and like you just like, I would just die of happiness. Like, you know,
It's a moment that matters.
and that just will, like, and that will fire you up. Like
Right.
that will literally fire you up to be like, yo, one of my idols just did this. Like this makes me inspired. Like I'm gonna do this because
Exactly.
like, and to respond to, I guess, the writing camp or just writing in general, and the advice to everyone. And I think Rick Rubin, iconic producer. If you guys don't know who that is, look up who he is. He has so many hits, and you should look at his interview series. He has amazing ones with like Pharrell and Kevin Abstract of Brockhampton and so many other people. But my advice, as we keep saying stuff, is never go into making anything music wise or anything with an end result. You need to stay present of what you're doing. Like you need to just do what you're doing and not even be like going into a session and being like, I want this to be like a hit, or like I want this to like do whatever. Like it has to be a very natural, organic process.
I think having what you said earlier about the mood board is a really good frame, because you can accomplish, like we can go into a session and I'll like walk in sometimes and it's open in terms of like who we're writing for. And this is maybe more like official, like if it's been set up by a publisher or
like
whatever.
More of like a publishing.
Yeah, then I'm like, who are we writing for? And I'm like, I'm open to it. And then you talk to them and you're like, should we do something at 100 beats per minute or something at like a house speed? And that's fun for me.
Right.
Maybe not everyone loves that. But what you said about like, yeah, let's write like a hit. Like, I mean, what the fuck does that mean? Like after we had a story, I don't remember if it was told on the stream or not, which is basically Christian from half of Galantis. He is one of the writers of Britney Spears' Toxic. I don't remember his producer name back then.
I miss also just Mike Snow so bad.
And from Mike Snow,
everybody.
Exactly.
Galantis is two of them of Mike Snow, and then it's Wyatt. I think
it's just one. I think only Christian from.
No.
Linus isn't. Linus is not in.
Christian?
Yeah, Linus is not in Mike Snow. But
what's the? Oh, it doesn't matter. But I know there's the singer is Wyatt something that did that Flume song too. Anyway,
but the thing that happened with Toxic was that exactly. Thank you, Bloodshy and Yvonne. I guess he was Bloodshy. He was like a teenager touring with the Fugees when he was a rapper in Sweden as a teenager.
That's so funny.
On the Score tour. So going back the clock, and I know he's not watching this, or else I'd probably get like a nasty DM. But yeah, that's public knowledge. But he got stories for days. The point that like they were like watching Bollywood things, and that's where that string sample came from.
True.
The whole concept. But then after that, every single label, someone else on the stream was talking about that from the context of being in the industry around that time, and every single label person was like, give us a Toxic to other producers. And you're like, by the time this shit comes out, it's going to be so played. Like, there's only one Toxic. You're not going to like do another like that sound. That's and if it does, if you do release it, like it's going to be a flash in the pan. No one cares. So it's really about like building again, like the thing that you want to build, like the music, your musical voice. And that goes in part with the other stuff we're talking about, like what's your message? Like what kind of art do you like? Whatever.
I think, this, my friend, this singer, her name's Sarah Barrios. She was like, 1 second. Oh shit, we got on a hyperpop playlist for something.
Dope. We are going to get to the demos eventually. We're just going to roll with it for now.
Yeah. What was I? I don't even remember what I was gonna say, but let's answer some of these other questions.
Yeah, I know that. Okay, so what is the best piece of advice? You got that one? From Hassan, you'd offer to yourself early years.
Yo, man, we're friendly. We email. Honestly, I mean, it's again these things that are so cliche, but it's like trust the process. Like being aware of like your environment and like all these signals and like, you know, I think from like I would even like not even working with certain people and it not working out, or certain things that like, you know, did not work out, or, you know, we obviously only share for a majority just our wins online. Like there's been obviously a lot of disappointments and a lot of, everyone can attest of like, you know, certain depression or anxiety, but like you have friends and like you get through it somehow. But like what I would tell my younger self is like, everything's going to work out. Trust your instinct, take that internship, do that interview, like understand these signals are happening for a reason, and like listening to the universe. And like, you know, I'm very not religious, but like I believe in like a larger power, and like I believe in like energy and, you know, creation and like, you know, serendipitous things happening. And I even have a tattoo that says serendipity, that like I have a lot of tattoos, by the way. But I had my mom write it. But like anyway, also it's funny because my Tumblr, when I was doing Tumblr in college, it was called serendipity on the daily .tumblr. Whatever the heck. And I met like I don't know if you know her, like Krista De Leon on there, and she's like, you know, does visual like for Tosca Black and works with Manila on some stuff. And like I met Yatep Petey on Tumblr, and like I met a lot of people on Tumblr. And you know, I really do think you meet people for a reason. And like, you know, in college I met like this girl Vajra, who I went to college with, who helped me get my internship at Webster Hall. And just like quickly saying that this part of the story, which I didn't even say, is like basically it was like my friend Michael Mazel's 21st birthday, and we're in New York City visiting from Baltimore to New York. And my friend Vajra hits me up and she's like, hey, let's go to Webster Hall. I didn't even know what Webster Hall was really. And like we went to this club, and she's like, we're like going through the back, through security, up the gate and all that, and like go to like the top level of like the VIP area, Crow's Nest or whatnot. You've been to Webster, yeah? And so like it's freaking around Halloween, Bloody Beetroots are playing, Bloghouse is popping. I don't know if Kat is still in here, but I know she
Kat
loves Bloghouse. And basically I'm like handed this thing of champagne, like fucking Warped comes on, and then like Cornelius, and then all this shit, and I'm like flipping a fucking shit. I'm like, this is insane. Like I didn't even know they were playing. And you know, if you can just play Warped real quick on the back end, just to get people like amped real quick. Bloody Bruce or Cornelius.
Right. Just keep talking.
What do you want, Pat? We'll do it for you. What do you want from Bloody?
I think of Bloody Beetroots a little earlier because they had the Timbaland bootleg, which was
true.
Which was a couple years before, which had that. Oh yeah, Kat knows. We're just gonna run it real quick. Oh my.
Oh, 12.
All of our conversations end up being about Bloghouse.
That's fine. I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick.
This was a big deal. I'm gonna pull up. Let me try and figure out. Okay, that's not working at all. Not much of a video. Old Crookers, absolutely. This is like a weird extended version. It feels very long.
Just give something. Oh my god, Crookers, I freaking love Crookers. We love animals. Okay, but basically to answer you the original question, I think everything led to certain moments to meeting people and, you know, letting those things kind of ride out. And like, I mean, I'm definitely aware of, you know, that I was able to go to college, that I was able to study in London, that I was able to do certain things. Like I'm very aware of that. And I appreciate that very much. And, you know, just trying to, you know, give back as much as I can information wise. So like, I'll just say now, like, this is, we're like 2 hours in and I'm sure we'll keep going, is like, I love talking about this stuff. Like, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, so there's something in that's sort of. I mean, I think it's obvious, but there's something in each of these stories every week, and that's why it's really nice to get people from different perspectives and backgrounds. And like your day to day is very different from my day to day, is different from Top Liner's day to day. But there's something to take away from all of it. Obviously, I think that like
I could continue that a little, but go on. Sorry.
No, it's there's a lot like in these times. I do want to touch on a question from OK Sami that I thought has a really specific answer. It was like, before you get into like dealing with managers or agents or agreements and things like that, what are green and red flags to look out for? I think that's a pretty easy one to like that we can knock off. It's like, and even with terms with some blogs and stuff, and with regards to PR, and there's a lot of looking to like make money up front these days and asking for literal like cash, like you must pay X amount to submit, or some artists on Twitter are like, send me X amount on PayPal and I'll like A&R your track. And been some pushback on that, and I'm like, yeah, there should be pushback on that, because like, fuck you, man. That's like, don't be making anyways. So any situation in which someone is like asking a potential manager or agent or whatever labels like, give us money to like help you in your career up front, I would say would be a big red flag. That's just where I sit. Brett, I think you've probably got some other thoughts.
So this answers that one question. What's it called? Sorry. I'm like going at the top. Oh my god, it's super buried. I know we need to get to ADMDA, but then there was, oh my god, it's so far up. I'm so sorry. But I saw it in it. The one about like getting a record deal or like putting out an album. So I know some people that have definitely been stuck in the allure of getting an album deal and them just blockading putting any of it out. But basically, what my perception is and what I'm doing, and it's not, rocket science, but it could be to some, is, and I'm not going to say with who, but I guess one could assume based on certain things I've been saying on this stream, is putting together the music and the artistic vision and everything on your own. Have it fully packaged on your own, and then going to either a record label or a distributor saying, this is what we want. We're open to, you don't even have to say you're open to any edits, but it's like, this is our vision. We already know it's amazing. This is the breakdown of finances that we need accomplished from like marketing, art, photo, video, production, features, ads, whatever. and you just know what you want, and then you see what the terms are, you know, and like, yeah, like, so, and just so people know, because some people may not know, and I don't know who here saw like the Kanye thing of him kind of leaking all 10 plus of his label deals, and as they changed is, you know, for the most part with major labels, there's an 80-20 split. And then there's either a 15 to 30%, generally speaking, distribution deal before that from the record label, that usually if you're a major label, you already own that too. So you're taking 15 to 30% off the top, and then you're taking another 80%. So it's literally like a 700% markup bullshit, and they're just banks. And I'm not going to knock on what it is, because sometimes, like, you know, they're there to help develop or get you radio or certain things.
No, you're just doing math. You're just doing
you're
math for the chat. Keep going. Keep
and
going.
like, you know, I think for me, the only thing that I really personally want or need with my artists is I can put a record together. We can do all the creative together. We have a great publicist. We can do everything. I need radio, DSP placement, and money. That's it. I don't need anything else. And it doesn't, it's a very broad statement. For like the artist, it doesn't matter, but it's like, I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses. Same with my artists. And it's like, people don't realize things are up for negotiation. Crazy concept, you know? And think of this, if you're not utilizing certain people in their department and they're obviously giving you these deals, it's like, well, let's kick off 10 people that you would potentially be hiring, and all we're counting are these things. There are structures with these distributors, depending on who you talk to, and this is not secret knowledge if you do your research, but like, they could start at like 15% and it goes higher and higher for, you know, more advances, or like getting radio or getting other things where they'll just take higher percentages. But that's also just the first part. That's not also then on the record part. So you could get everything you want just from the distributor. So it's literally what you want to get out of it to answer that question. Not saying you shouldn't do certain things, just know what you want to get out of it.
Yeah, no, I think it's an important conversation. We've talked about it a little bit, but it's so like nebulous. There's so many aspects to it, and we're going to dive into that more on these chats. Like, I've got someone on the label side for the first time coming in a couple weeks, and it's going to be really interesting to hear how that fits together. We're not here to knock getting a major label deal. Some people have that experience. I haven't had that experience. All I know is indie labels, and it's, you know, it's done for me what it's done. And I think going back to what's been a recurring theme that of today, at least, is that the more vision you have of what the project is, the better off you're going to be, because you're going to be able to understand whether that label can help you achieve that vision, or if you just have, because again, labels are not looking for like the next someone that sounds like Disclosure or Flume, because there's streams now. They already exist, and everyone knows
also,
how.
It's
like, you know what I mean? That's not what they're looking for.
Like there's also like departments at these places that are literally like, there's like literally at these big labels like hits departments that just know how to make like hits.
Totally. Yeah.
And like there's sync places, and like there's just so many different parts of business. And some other people need to realize too, like there are 360 models. Mm-hmm. So like there's some people who you need to, like, for your recoupment, it's like merch, it's touring and stuff, but like they're obviously fronting the bill on that, but at what cost?
So the thing that you have to bring to the table as an artist beyond your music, and I'm not trying to shit on anyone's music or production, because obviously that's where most of us start from, as, you know, up and coming music lovers and producers, whatever, musicians. The thing is, like, the thing you have that's your asset is your voice, your personality, your story, whatever that may be. And it took me a while to realize that, because I was a DJ first and I just wanted to make remixes and this and that. And that was just fun. But I think if I were to start over, now to do like a side project or something, it'd be way more straightforward because it'd be like, oh, what's the mood board? Like what year are we in? What tools do we have? And that on, what colors do we like? And like that helps me inform. Like this is now I know where we are sonically, what the music is. You know what I mean? And then I have a thing and I can do that.
Right. So here's another thing I've picked up on, and like from being in the industry for 7 years and just reading a lot about it from articles, which, guys, I think she's still in the chat, but Kat is one of the most amazing interview people out there, and like from her Cat calls
Shout out
to,
Cat calls.
her regular interviews too, with she's done like Disclosure and a billion people. Like follow Kat. Everyone, she just
Cat Bine.
G right there. She is the ultimate G. Like honestly, top 5 like people that does what she does, not even close. And I'm not just saying that, but but she's insane, and like she's had really good interviews that you may learn something from these big artists where like, a lot of it's like I was in a certain period of my life and this is why this artistic vision happened, or these songs lyrically kind of happened, where it's like, you hear of, Vincent van Gogh having the different color periods, and like all these artists, like you look at like, let's just even say like Miley Cyrus too, where like she's had like these different periods of what she's wanted to say about herself and like the things she's dealing with in her life. And that's all the like everyone. And it's just, I think it's really important. Let's even just say like Porter Robinson right now too, from like what Worlds meant to him to what now, Nurtured means to him. And it's like, it's healing himself. And, we're all in these journeys together as people, like dealing with our own demons and stuff. And like, I think it's really cool to see, these artists therapeutically come to this epiphany sometimes to do things. And like, for me as a manager, like I'm literally just here to help them see that through. Like that is my job. Like we'll go over songs and be like, just listen to it, write down the lyrics or keywords and colors, and like start mood boards and stuff like that. And like, you never know what comes out of those things. And like, it was crazy. We're like doing a song with some very big artist, can't say the name or the label, but we sent them the song, like the person to do the treatment. And I don't want to like give any information away, but like if someone could like reach into my brain as I like look into this and pull out what I love and what okay, it's for Manila Killa, but it's not going to say any more information. You can't even make it up. You're like, how'd you come up with this without even giving any hints? And we're like, damn. But anyway, please don't get mad at me, Chris. I mean, I didn't really give any information away there, but it's just really cool to see how these things just naturally happen without like, it just happens. Like it just happens.
I mean, I think we're chasing these sorts of like, we're chasing these moments and these milestones. Like, yes, it's a really big thing to get a New Music Friday. Obviously, it's like a massive thing. But like you said, like if that's also not floating you. Well, but like there's other stuff too. To work with idols is a really big deal.
Here's a big thing, and I've seen this tweeted jokingly places. Getting on a Spotify or Apple playlist is not a marketing strategy. It is not. It is part of potentially there, but a marketing strategy is what are your assets, from video content to your artwork to your photos to how you interact with fans to what are you putting out there? Like, are you putting out like a Nalgene bottle that like you give the profits to like some wilderness company, which I'm giving an example of what Eden has done.
Mm-hmm.
To like what, oh my God, like friggin' Disclosure, and I'll show this. They they put out like a bunch of different vinyl. One of the most beautiful vinyl I own.
Mm-hmm.
This I bought their recycled vinyl, and they didn't put out that many of them. And I will find out how to open this. Look how beautiful this is. It's recycled vinyl.
It's tight.
And what's even cooler is the other one is a different color because they're all from everywhere, and it's so sick. But you know, I think what it is how does who you are as a person / artist, how does it potentially overlap as just as an artist and who you are. We're like, this was really cool because it's eco-friendly, like
Yeah.
you know like if you're dealing with like, okay, like Elohim is so avid about her mental health, and talking about like the Jed Foundation and giving back to just it's okay to not be okay, and like I think that's really powerful. And like I think her and Alice in Wonderland are like really like up there with like being contributors to like talking about that and like normalizing those things. And I mean, I'll get personal too quick. Like it wasn't until uh the pandemic I decided to get a therapist and like deal with some demons and like deal with certain things I grew up with, or friendships, relationships, whatever. And like I feel better. Like it's like, and I think at the end of the day, everybody, it's like, are you working on yourself? Are you becoming the best version of yourself? Are you a well-oiled machine, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever? We're like, if I can't be the best version of myself, I can't be there for my artists.